Hello, and welcome to the Hearthstone Extreme Budget Deck Challenge, where we're gonna explore what you can do on ladder with a very low cost deck. The aim of this exercise is in no way to get to legend, it is simply to test out how well we fare on the ladder, probably against a lot better decks. I've set the threshold of the decks we're gonna make today at 200 dust cost per deck. And now I say decks because I'm gonna be playing every class. I didn't want this to be limited in, well, let's just say that some classes have better budget decks than others, and I didn't want to be accused of picking one of the easier ones, so I'm gonna be playing all 9 classes. And since this is a relatively new account, I might not have all the cards needed. If you're focusing on one class at a time, you would obviously be able to build a much stronger deck for that class. So just keep that in mind while we're playing here. As you can see, I made a new account here. I level all the classes to 10. And I did this in casual mode, which is why I have 41 wins up here. I basically just took whatever class, let's say Shaman, at level 1, and then I made a custom deck. And I went into casual and I leveled them and won some and I lost some, and I did this for all the classes. I also got 1 win in arena, which is an accident. I like arena, so I made a deck and I tested it out, and as you see, it went well. I was gonna concede because I wanted this to be a 0, but the other guy conceded just before me. So I have 1 win. I retired the deck straight after. It wasn't supposed to have this win, but didn't matter. As you can see, if we go in the play mode and ranked, oh, you see I have all 9 classes here. Only one of them is available for play right now. We'll get back to that later. As you can see, I was ranked, I'll go in here again if you didn't see it. I'm ranked 24 right now, 2 stars, and that's also an accident. Well, one of the first quests you get is to win a game in rank mode to get a pack. And I say rank mode now, it's actually just play mode. So I could have done it in casual, but just by instinct I went into ranked, and I won 3 times in a row with the level 5 mage, whatever. Which is why I have the, I've started a win streak in here of 3 games, but it doesn't matter. I haven't played the other ones in ranked yet, which is why the rank is so low. There we go. Let's open my collection here, see what we did. I've opened several packs on this account now. I think I've opened about 10 or so, and I dusted every single card I got there. And it left me with about 1,000 dust actually. And I used that 1,000 dust to create cards for each class. I've saved a couple of the cards that I was gonna use, but I mostly dusted everything else. I think I kept, was it a shredder? Single shredder? A harvest golem? 1 antique guild bot? Something like that. It was like 3 common cards. And the rest I dusted. And then I started building decks. As you can see, all of these are basic cards. There you go. And I left out 2 cards, which means I have a budget of 200 dust to finish this deck. And that goes for every single class in here. I already crafted the cards that I'm gonna put in, and I'm not always gonna be using all the dust requirement. In the warrior here, if we look at the curve, I could smooth out the curve with harvest golem, and yeah, instead of a chillwind yeti, I'm gonna use 1 piloted shredder. Could have been the same. Could also have been a yeti, that would have been fine. Doesn't really make all that much of a difference, but hey, why not? It's a 100 dust deck here. Every single new player should be able to gather up 100 dust. Well, actually it's 80, right? Because commons only cost 40 to craft. So yeah, any new player should be able to get this. You get 95 dust just from crafting, well, dusting anything in in the crafting mode. So that's why I also kept the number at 200, because it's fairly easy for a new player to get 200 dust, as you get pretty much the first 100 from disenchanting anything, and you get these 10 packs as I mentioned, which amounts to quite a good amount of dust. So you can make decks for a lot of classes here, as long as you keep them low. If you focus on one class, as I said, you would be doing far better. But since I'm gonna be spreading out, I'm gonna relying on slightly less dust here. Yeah, as you can see, the Shaman has some pretty strong basic cards. Fire Elemental is very good. Have a bunch of finishers here. They have some of the best removal in the game. What they really like though is area of effect and a bit of draw, but hey, can't get everything right. So I've crafted a couple of lightning storms. That's the 200 dust I'm going to use for the Shaman to complete his deck. Next up is the Rogue. They have some really powerful weapons and removal as well. Bit heavy on the 4 side and the 5 mana slot, but as you can see, I wanted to focus a bit more on board control with the weapon, so I crafted a couple of Goblin Auto Barbers. And what's the other thing? Oh yeah, a bit of healing, so an anti-kill bot. And well, let's have a look. Yeah, it's probably a 4-drop, so we put in a Paladin Shredder here. That's 200 dust. Well, it's actually less than 200, right? It's only 160. Well, actually, I could make another common card, but I'm not gonna. There we go. So it's even less than 200. Then we have the Paladin. Paladin. Wow, the curve looks awful. It always does for Paladin, especially when you're using basic decks. That doesn't mean that the class isn't strong as a basic class, but it really lacks some early game, which is why we crafted Shield the Mini-Bots and the, or was it the Muster? There we go, to finish up the deck. That's the 200 dust allowance, and we only used 180 there. Let's have a look. The Hunter. I have 2 different types of basic Hunter decks. I have the control version and I have the aggro version, and I think I'll stick with the aggro version this time around. Oh, you can call it mid-range, but it's more aggro-ish with Night Blades and the charged dudes. Since most of the other basic decks are control variants, I felt like it was nice to mix it up with at least 1 or 2 aggro versions. Then we have the Druid. As you can see, this is heavy ramp Druid, basically. You have a bunch of heavy hitters here, a bunch of high mana cards. As you can see, the upper curve is really high here, which is why we want the wild growth. Just to smooth out the curve a bit and help us in the early game, crafted a couple of rats, really important removal, and we got a Drill the Claw to give us some taunt or some charge, whatever we need. And since we are in an aggro meta right now, we're gonna include a bit of healing as well. There we go. Once you get the Ancient of Lores, you don't need the healing as much, since they make up for it with either draw or healing, so you can switch out whatever you need. But as the Druid here, we really need this additional healing. Then we have the Warlock. Let's see, it's a weird concoction, really. It's a mix between Sue Warlock. You can see it's the early curve here, very aggro oriented, and then it suddenly changes over to a bit more control-ish, where you have a bit of late game as well. When you're doing budget decks of Warlocks, you don't have the cards to do full out Sue, and you simply don't have the buffs to do so. So what you do is you turn it slightly more towards the heavy side. Doesn't matter if you discard any of this with the Doom card, you're going to be drawing them with the hero power. But the higher curve here means that you are not as focused on using hero power all the time. And that in return means you have more health, and you get more, you basically just spend more time playing minions instead of hero powering and playing weak minions. So this is decent against other aggro decks, especially the Hellfire's help here, and your main minions outclass theirs in the long run. Doomguard is just to give you that extra reach against control decks and such. Pretty good. Then we have the custom mage, still all basic cards. Flame Strike's really good in mages. What we're gonna include in the mage is, let's have a look. That looks like Harvest Golem and then a Sword Drake, and probably some healing as well here, just to keep us. This is a control version, really. You have a bunch of high mana cost minions, especially the Flame Strikes. You want to control the board. Aggro decks like Hunter will burn you down. You need just a bit extra bit of healing here. Let's have a look. And the Priest. Well, since I don't have any more dust left, I actually built a Priest with just basic cards. It has a really strong basic set out of all the classes, so you can do this without even using dust, and it will do fairly well in there. Of course, there are upgrades, but not really necessary ones as such. There we go. So these are all the decks that I'm gonna be playing. I'm gonna be playing in play mode, which is what we're gonna be doing next.